We were already discussing basically the factors that help, the factors that affect the movement, that help the movement of water up the xylem vessel from the soil up to the leaf, right? So basically we were able to go through three important factors. We were able to, sorry, go through two important factors, and we already discussed that there were three in general, in three factors that contribute to the movement of water from the the soil to the leaf, the movement of water up the xylem vessel. So those three factors were root pressure, capillary action, and transpirational pull. We have already been able to do root pressure, and the capillary action. We were going through the transpirational pull. So we discussed about transpiration. We already know that transpiration is the loss of water vapors from the plant through stomata of the leaves, right? So how does this becomes a factor in the movement of water up the xylem vessel? Xylem vessels, they actually bring water to the leaf when the cell content are more concentrated. When the cell's contents are more concentrated, thus water leaves the xylem vessel by osmosis and gets into the mesophyll cells. We know that, right? This is how the water from the xylem vessel is getting into the cells. From cells, the water evaporates and goes into the intercellular air spaces. All right. From there, the cells, the water that has been acquired, the water that has moved by the process of osmosis from the xylem vessel into the mesophyll cell is now going to evaporate from the cell, right, into the air spaces. So the water vapor, so this leads to the water vapor increase in the intercellular air space. You understand? So the water vapor evaporates into the air spaces from mesophyll cells, right? Once this takes place, the concentration, or you can say the concentration of water vapor, all right, this leads to concentration of water vapor increases in air spaces, intercellular air spaces, and intercellular air spaces as compared to to outside of leaf. This leads to what? Therefore, so this creates a concentration gradient. So the concentration gradient is going to become something like this, right? Concentration of vapors inside leaf, they are high. Inside leaf it is high, and outside it is low. So it's going to move down the concentration gradient from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, right? So the movement, so vapors move out of leaf through stomata through stomata by diffusion. By diffusion. By the process of diffusion, they are going to move outside. And this process is called, this is transpiration. Now, this transpiration is going to, all right, this movement, transpiration, actually, transpiration and evaporation, or rather, we should write evaporation and transpiration creates a vacuum. Evaporation and transpiration creates a vacuum, which brings more water vapors, more water from xylem into this, into the leaf. More water, which brings more water from xylem in the leaf. This is what, this is what creates the transpirational pull. Okay, this is what the transpirational pull is. Is this understood?
जी
So basically,
जी
once the transpiration is taking place, the water is leaving the leaf. It creates a space for more water to move in, right? It creates a vacuum from which the more water can move in. So that vacuum actually becomes a force which brings the water up the xylem vessel. All right, and we have already studied that transpirational pull is one of the most strongest and most influential factor. So if there is the, once the stomata gets closed, we see that the movement of the xylem vessel stop becomes very slow, almost like none. Okay, so that is why we see that when stomata are closed, the movement up xylem vessel, up the xylem vessel slows down to almost none. Okay, to almost no movement. Okay, and we have transpiration pull is is the most significant, or is the most significant factor for moving water up the vessel into the leaves. Okay, let me know when you have written this. All right, so we've been able to go through um, how the transpirational pull becomes a factor. Now let's talk about the transpiration itself as well. We already know what transpiration is, right? When we talk about transpiration, there are three things that we have to know about, talk about. When we talk about transpiration in your course, you're going to be experiencing, you need to know a few things with transpiration. You should be able to define and explain transpiration. Define, you should, what transpiration is, explain as well. All right, you should also be able to uh, tell about how it becomes a factor. So there are advantages and disadvantages. And disadvantages, and factors that affect the rate of, and the rate of transpiration, and ways to measure this rate, photometer. How can you measure the amount of transpiration that is taking place? So these are the few things that we have to, we've already gone through this. We'll inshallah go through this and this right now. Then we'll discuss the photometer in a separate meeting, inshallah. So when we talk about advantages, when we talk about advantages, we have number one, transpiration helps in movement of water from root to soil, sorry, from soil to leaf, right? From roots to leaf, right? Ensures availability of mineral ions, right? More water is moving up, bringing a lot of minerals in with it, dissolved. Water availability, mm, sorry, we should write, uh, lowers the temperature of the leaves, creating optimum conditions for metabolic activity like enzymes, right? And there are a few disadvantages as well. Loss of turgidity and pressure in the leaf, and the turgor pressure in the leaf. What are disadvantages? Disadvantages are only there if there's excess. If excess transpiration occurs, then what happens? Loss of water and turgor pressure, right? Wilting, wilting and dehydration, right? Wilting and dehydration. All right, let's move on to the factors that affect the transpiration. Factors